So this piece, which is the piece I'm reading off my friend's smartphone, is also a Holy Week piece. As you might know, Holy Week is also coincides with Passover, the Passover holiday, and this piece was written for Passover and was read at my in-laws' Seder several years ago, which was a cool honor. And it makes a good companion piece to this really like pessimistic, dark, kind of uncomfortable story about entrapment, because it's really a piece about various kinds of liberation, and it might sound a little confusing because it's written for, like I said, for multiple voices. So the switches in perspective are a little easier to follow when multiple people are reading it, but I'll try to do my best to differentiate. And then she came to the sea. After years of being tested, the creak and groan of our bodies in Egyptian fields bend and lift up and down the dusty rows of wheat and lentils and leeks, salty streams of sweat, watering someone else's harvest, fruit that we were not allowed to taste. My long day hunched over a stack of papers, a mop and a bucket, a big machine, asking myself if this is really my life, what my life is made of, this job, this marriage, this factory. Someone else's babies at our breasts, and our boy babies murdered by order of the king unless the midwife sees fit to save him, maybe helps to hide him, maybe allocates a little more money for health insurance, helps me pay for his inhaler, maybe wraps him in a blanket and a basket and floats him down the river, maybe keeps him in a school here on our street, people once invited, now held captive in a foreign land. People beaten in the streets and no justice. I must be invisible to police, hour-long nights, laying awake in silence, waiting for him to come home, moving through days without moving, standing still, and always the fear. I will never be able to get out of here. The sea stretched out before her after the horrors. We had watched the Egyptian river run thick with blood, then the frogs, then lice swarming over our captors' beds, settling in the corners of their children's eyes. And I read the newspaper and I thought, now they'll know how it feels to suffer. But in my heart, I was afraid. We were afraid, watching wild beasts tear up the crops we had tended, watching their panic in their eyes. And I was sad as I watched his brother slam the door. It's just when he drinks. He's different, that's all. How long can I do this for? The panic and the anger, painful sores oozing pus, hailfire from the sky, and still they do not free us, a hardening heart. My body betrays me, my mind tumbles over itself in a howling fear, a hardened heart. Then buzzing, swooping down from the skies, swarming armies in green armor, laying waste to what we had sown, an empire not our own, then darkness. Darkness like the streetlights. Out for 3 nights on Armitage in February, I heard someone was attacking women by the L. Darkness so thick the stars were blotted out, though there was light in our homes. Darkness so heavy I could feel it. I cried, and everything was crisis. I painted my lips, my front door, red. And in the end, so many cold and lifeless oldest sons. Oh no. And then the screen was dark, and I didn't know how to work the phone. Swipe the screen, I've got it. And all at once it was decided that we would be free. And I ate in a hurry, and I packed in a hurry and left. And then she came to the shining sea. And the sea stretched out before us, shining like a topaz in the pharaoh's crown, like the sunrise shining, like the sweat on our foreheads, the sweat on our backs. We turned and saw the army in the distance, gaining ground, and the pounding of our hearts, we heard their hoofbeats and the chariots approaching. I was stupid to think it was possible. I was stupid to think it could change. Our voices cried out, "Did we come here because there were not enough graves in Egypt? It would have been better for us to live as slaves than to die here in the wilderness. Stupid woman, what are you doing? You're not strong. It will never change." And we heard, "Stand firm." And we heard, "Fear not." And a hand stretched over the shining sea, and it parted. The sea parted, like singing praise. The sea drew itself up, with all the purpose of a child who knows she's done right. Through the night the wind blew hard, and the water formed walls to the left and the right. And a myth is just something that happens over and over again. And so I walked out, and so we walked out over dry ground. And so I walked out, and so we walked out over dry ground. And so I walked out, and so we walked out over dry ground. It's never that simple. As I walked out of that place, I felt something of the old me following like a hungry ghost, a shadow holding fast to my heels, even as I was facing the sun. The panic rose in my stomach. I could taste it on my tongue, that metal taste of oppression. We looked back over our shoulders and saw the armies following. Did they fear the walls of roaring water, the searing pillar of cloud and fire? Before freedom, liberation. Before liberation, desire. Through the night we walked. I lay in bed, and though I was afraid, I didn't pick up the phone. Through the roaring tunnel. In my mind, I could hardly believe it, but in my heart I had flown. Before desire, belief. In the power of the heart, of the voice, of the feet. Pressing our weary children to our sides and rubbing our tired eyes in the gray pre-dawn light, we turned back and saw the waters rushing together, the great mouth closing over the clamoring army with its chariots and horses. Then the first sunlight fell over my face, and my pillow wet with tears, I opened my eyes. And though I knew it would be a long time before we were home, and the roaring walls of water were still around us, and the fearful clamor of the sea closing up behind, still we clapped our hands and took up our tambourines. I overflowed with the song of praise. Praise for the morning and the salty air. Praise for what I'd left and what I'd yet to find. Praise for the grace of standing between them, walking out over dry ground. It's an ancient song.